Welcome to In Focus Texas, where we take an in-depth look at the issues that matter to you. I'm your host, Carla Leal. The deadline to file bills at the 88th Texas legislative session has passed. Several proposals to improve our state's education system are on the table. In the past 2 years, Texas schools have been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic in different ways. Schools across the state are hungry for funding to front challenges like teacher retention and safety. On this show, we'll learn more about how this and other education issues are being addressed. As Texas lawmakers figure out how to improve the challenges our public schools are facing, one Central Texas school district is already taking steps to retain its highest performing teachers. Our JJ Maldonado shows us what they're doing and how educators are responding.
Happy Hedgie to end the day in a positive note.
Gloria Lopez Rangel is a fifth grade bilingual teacher at Lockhart ISD.
The most important part is the children and their families, and the growth that I see year after year. That keeps me going, keeps me motivated. I like hearing their stories.
She has nearly 3 decades of experience in the classroom. She says in the past, many teachers would advance their careers with teaching certifications, but now has noticed many leaving the profession for a variety of reasons.
That's kind of worrisome because we're losing really good qualified teachers that the kids have, loved when they were working.
According to the Texas Education Agency, a Texas teacher with more than 20 years experience earns an annual salary of $54,000. Lockhart ISD is addressing the issue head on and hoping to retain their highest performing teachers through compensation. The district says their pathway to $100,000 is possible through incentives such as the TEA's Teacher Incentive Allotment.
We are looking at a pathway for our target is 33% of our teachers in the next 5 years to be earning $100,000 or more.
Experts say some of the reasons for teachers leaving the profession may be personal, pay or benefits, or poor working conditions. For teachers like Ms. Rangel, she says incentives go a long way to keeping teachers in the classroom and feeling valued.
Texas lawmakers from both sides of the aisle have bills that address increments in teacher pay. Representative James Talarico is one of them. I spoke with him about some of the bipartisan work happening at our state capitol and how he's addressing teacher salaries. Representative James Talarico, welcome to In Focus Texas. House Bill 1548 is among the ones that you filed this legislative session. It proposes a $15,000 teacher pay increase across the board, tapping into our state's budget surplus. How has it been received by your colleagues at the House Public Education Committee?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, and thank you for covering this important topic. Before I was a legislator, I was a public school teacher. I taught middle school on the west side of San Antonio in San Antonio ISD. And so I care a lot about public education. I care about our students, and I care about my fellow teachers across the state. And when I was in the classroom, I struggled to make ends meet myself. And I had coworkers who had to drive Ubers at night or sell their own blood plasma just to make extra money, just to pay the bills. And so that's why I'm filing this bill that's going to give every teacher in Texas a $15,000 pay raise. And I've gotten great feedback from my colleagues in both political parties, Democrats and Republicans. And I've also heard that members in both parties are hearing from their constituents around the state that they want a dramatic teacher pay raise so we can finally pay teachers what they're worth.
Well, tell us more about how are you and your colleagues from both sides of the aisle working to come to an agreement that would benefit educators across Texas, because there are several bills that are addressing teacher pay on board right now.
Yeah, well, I think everyone needs to recognize that this is an emergency in our public schools. We have teachers who are leaving the profession at a record rate. We have an unprecedented teacher shortage in this state. And that's because 40% of Texas teachers are having to work a second job just to pay the bills. And we've got teachers who are not just driving Ubers, but they have entire second jobs in the evenings when they're exhausted after they've taught kids all day long, and they're having to work into the night just to make sure they can provide for their families. So we have an emergency. Texas teacher salaries are already $7,500 behind the national average. We are in the bottom half of states when it comes to teacher pay. My bill, a $15,000 pay raise for all teachers, would rocket Texas into the top 10 states for teacher pay. And Governor Abbott likes to brag about stealing businesses from California and New York. If we were to pass my bill, we could start stealing the best teachers from California and New York and Florida and convincing them to come teach our kids here in Texas. And I think that's something that all Texans can get behind, whether they're Republicans, Democrats, or independents. And so that's the kind of coalition we're trying to build to go big for our teachers and for our kids.
Well, teachers have recently visited with legislators at our state capitol. What have they shared with you, and how are Texas lawmakers addressing their concerns?
I've heard gut-wrenching stories from my fellow teachers who come to the Capitol, sometimes during their spring break this week, to testify for themselves and for their profession. I just talked to a teacher this morning who has been in the classroom for 25 years and who says that she's thinking about leaving the profession because she can't make ends meet. And that's a tragedy for all of us, to have a great experienced teacher leave, not because they're ready to retire, but because they can't afford to be a teacher anymore. That's a tragedy in Texas, and we've got to fix that this session. We have an emergency, and it requires emergency action on behalf of the legislature.
What are other ways Texas legislators are trying to address public school funding?
Well, teacher pay is part of it. We've also got to increase the basic allotment, which is the first part of the school finance formula. And we need a significant increase in that formula so that we can benefit everyone in our schools. My bill is not just for classroom teachers, it's also for bus drivers and librarians and nurses. It takes a lot of folks to make a school run, and all of them are in need of support and in need of help immediately. We've also got to worry about our retired teachers. Signing up to be an educator in Texas is not an easy job. You're not going to get paid a whole lot of money. You're going to have a near impossible job every single day that you wake up. But the promise we make to you is that in your retirement, you're going to get taken care of. And we have failed as a state to live up to that promise that we made to our retired educators, who in many ways are the ones who built the state that we have today. And so any plan that deals with education in this session has to deal with our retired teachers and give them a cost of living increase, which they haven't had in years.
Representative Tellerico, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Some lawmakers are pushing for school vouchers, but are they the right choice for Texas? Hear viewpoints from both sides of this issue coming up. Welcome back. School vouchers continue to be a hot button issue in the Texas legislature. Both Governor Greg Abbott and Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick say it's time for Texas to create a school choice program. Our political reporter Charlotte Scott shows us why Texans are split on this issue.
We are going to pass school choice. Parents deserve the freedom to choose the education that is best for their child.
For months, Texas's top elected officials promised a school choice program will pass this legislative session. Also called school vouchers, this type of program would give parents the ability to take tax dollars away from public schools to use for private and charter ones. House Speaker Dade Phelan hasn't voiced his opinion on the issue, but Mark Jones of Rice University says his committee assignments reveal where he stands.
If Dade Phelan had wanted school choice to pass, he would have created education committee with a very distinct composition, especially in terms of its chair.
Jones added that the Senate will need to be strategic with its school choice legislation, so if they pass a bill, it's not dead on arrival when it reaches the House. Midlothian Area Representative Brian Harrison is one committee member who does support school choice. In a recent letter to the governor, he wrote, "You are right to demand universal parental choice in education, and Texas should be leading." Austin Area Representative Gina Hinojosa is also on the committee. She doesn't support school vouchers because she thinks Texas schools need more funding, not less. But she says the threat of a school choice program passing is real.
It's going to take a full court press by all supporters of public schools to vocalize our dissent and our objection to defunding our public schools through a private voucher scheme.
Panhandle Republican Ken King is also on the committee. He says he opposes a school choice program because there are too many unanswered questions about how it will work. And he says he won't change his mind until Texas schools are fully funded.
Our public schools in Texas are one of the most important things we have to deal with in this legislative process, and I won't do anything to weaken that.
As the future of Texas schools is being shaped in part by the work of the 88th legislature, researchers like Professor David DeMatthews at UT Austin are taking a close look at what's at stake. Dr. DeMatthews, welcome to In Focus Texas.
Thanks for having me.
Well, you've published extensive research focused on school improvement. Help us understand, what role do public schools play in the communities across Texas and the U.S.?
Sure. So public schools are a vital institution in our country and in Texas. They're required by state law and by our Constitution, our state Constitution, to provide a free universal education to all students, regardless of their background. And what's important there to know is, so for students who are English language learners, for students who have disabilities, the state is required to provide them with a high quality education. And they also help prepare students not only for careers, but to be good neighbors, to be citizens in our democracy, and to treat one another with respect and civility.
What are the top public education issues that Texas families should follow closely in the current legislative session?
One of the biggest issues that I think every Texas family should really be thinking about is some of the proposed voucher legislation that the governor and some legislators have been talking about. They're framing this voucher as an education savings account, but it's a really problematic policy. Decades of research suggest that vouchers are harmful for the students who use the vouchers, and they also disproportionately have an impact on the funding of smaller schools. And so even though some Republicans are supporting vouchers in the legislature, there's a large contingent of rural Republicans who don't support vouchers. That's the number one issue I think Texas families should be thinking about, the other one being teacher pay and teacher retention.
What have you found out about the history behind this type of school choice or tuition grant proposals at our state legislature?
Sure. So I think something that every Texan should know, and even people who are supporting vouchers, is that the initial voucher policy in Texas was proposed by a 1956 subcommittee in our legislature. And the reason why that voucher was proposed, and it was called a tuition grant plan, was to allow white families to keep their children from attending integrated public schools after the Brown versus Board of Education decision.
What are the main challenges that you are seeing in our Texas public school system right now?
Sure. So I think the biggest challenge, and parents, I think families know this, that what's most important is having a high quality teacher that knows their child, knows the community, and is able to be effective in the classroom. And in order to do that, a teacher needs time, a teacher needs high quality professional development, and we need quality people who have gone through a rigorous preparation program to want to enter the profession. And so what we're seeing in Texas right now is kind of the opposite. So fewer and fewer young people are seeking an undergraduate degree in teacher education to become teachers. More and more, the people who are entering the teacher workforce come from alternative certification pathways. So they're less likely to attend a rigorous university. They're more likely to have a lower GPA. they're less likely to raise student achievement outcomes, and they're more likely to turn over quickly.
Well, several Texas school districts are implementing or considering a 4-day school week. Others are opting for hybrid models post-pandemic. Is there room for growth for these type of initiatives here in Texas? What does your research tell you?
I think those sorts of proposals show just how difficult positions, just how difficult superintendents and school boards, the difficult positions superintendents and school boards are in. Students need to be in the building. There's a lot of things that happen in school. It's not just about the STAR test, where children are socialized, where children get to engage in physical activity, they get, school lunches. So there's a lot of things that are really important about having kids in school. I think we're seeing those proposals is because there consistently is an unwillingness by some legislators to pay teachers an adequate salary in line with the cost of living in Texas. Those policies, a 4-day work week, they're trying to attract more teachers into the profession. But the number one reason why teachers say they're leaving, according to a recent Texas survey, is pay.
All right. Well, Professor DeMatthews, thank you for sharing your perspective.
Thank you.
The first public hybrid school in the entire state of Texas has more than just unique seating options. I'm Ashley Kloster. I'll show you how the kids can design their own path forward through education and even advance beyond their own grade. Coming up.
We're back. A public school in Dallas recently became the first in the state to go fully hybrid. Their students have a flexible schedule that allows them to go to school part-time and continue learning at home. Our Ashley Kloster shows us how this model is helping young Texans thrive in a digital world.
Felix Rueda is so smart, he sometimes scores higher than a 100 on tests.
I think I got 250 or something, or 150. That means I might be in 8th grade level.
But he's only in 5th grade.
So right now you are working at 8th grade level with our software, right?
Yes.
Because the instruction here is differentiated for the needs of the kids. So we differentiate for those babies that are a bit behind, but we also differentiate for those babies or students that need to move up the ladder.
Yeah.
Dr. Olga Romero is the founding principal of this publicly funded Dallas ISD school, Dallas Hybrid Prep.
So it's very important that we see that Dallas Hybrid Prep is a very different type of campus, very different from any other campus that you would see around Dallas ISD. So
kids are here in the classroom 2 days a week, then home doing virtual learning on their own schedule for 3 days.
And you'll see that every single child in our campus has 2 devices. They have a MacBook and they also have an iPad.
The virtual portion is a lot different than what we've seen during the pandemic. Kids are learning through a gamified platform. They can create avatars, walk the campus, and see their friends in avatar form.
I think Dallas Hybrid Prep is doing the right thing by their students coming out of the pandemic.
Dr. Peter Dufresne is with Nova Academy, which is an educational technology company based in Boston that specializes in online learning and college counseling.
We have an opportunity coming out of the pandemic to fix things, and I think you're going to see more schools take this on by themselves. I just wish it were more of a national discussion.
Felix is even starting his own podcast next week.
The Avenue Podcast.
When it comes to innovating in the classroom, encouraging students to excel in science, technology, engineering, and math is key. Leadership from the Tapia Center for Excellence in Equity and Education at Rice University in Houston know this well. Dr. Leticia Velasquez is their Director of Operations, and she joins me via Skype. Dr. Velasquez, welcome. When it comes to summer camps, there are so many options to choose for Texas families. What makes Tapia STEM camps so special, and what age group are they serving?
Yes, so Tapia Camps is located at Rice University, which is ranked in the top 20 U.S. universities for undergraduate students. We are targeting 8th graders to 12th graders, and we're providing the students a round-up experience on college readiness. In particular, the Tapia Camps curriculum is developed by top scientists, such as computer science and math professor Paul Hand, where we introduce the camper to interesting real-world problems in STEM and real career options.
While STEM is the main focus of the Tapia camps at Rice University, how do you explore those areas of communication? I know equity is also big, so how are those explored with the youth that are taking part in this experience?
Yes, so we use project-based learning techniques by teaching the basics of problem-solving skills so that the students can apply it to any subject. So instead of short-term memorization, EBL provides an opportunity for students to engage deeply with the target content and bring a focus on long-term retention. So in terms of diversity, all of our camp staff are from diverse backgrounds, so they can become role models to our campers as well while learning from them.
And tell us, why is it important for the students that are participating in this Tapia camps to stay at Rice University during the week that it all takes place? What do they gain from that experience?
So they are able to, as I mentioned, the campers will be able to interact with current and future role models in the STEM industry and academia, in particular with people that look like them. So they're going to stay 6 days and 5 nights, so they will have the full experience.
Well, tell us, how can parents and teachers identify youth that would enjoy this week of STEM immersion at the Tapia camps?
Yes, so the students will be able to grow and discover new ideas, but in particular, how they will be more stimulated to major in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, which is the backbone of our leadership of this country. And also, we want to create the new leaders in the STEM workforce. So we want to reach not just camper, but as well as educators that can incorporate our ideas and enforce and increase and strengthen the Texas workforce in the next decades.
It sounds like a great opportunity. Dr. Velasquez, thank you for sharing this information with us. That'll do it for this week's In Focus Texas. I'm Carla Leal. Thanks for joining us to explore the future of education here in Texas. Take care, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. For more refreshing stories about your community, click the subscribe button over here. You can also download our Spectrum News app and tune in to Channel 55 on Dish and DirecTV to get live news coverage, weather updates every 10 minutes, and more. We'll see you then.